Welcome to the Daily Dope Show. This is your host, Brandon Strong. Blah, blah, blah. Just a regular guy just like you and the other people watching this video, regular person who is about sick and tired of what's going on with the marijuana situation in this country. I mean, we all have Google. That's all I'm going to say. Like, anybody that still thinks there's any reason why we should arrest people for marijuana is just straight up a hater. Get over it and let's start thinking about other people's freedom, people that aren't infringing on your rights by simply choosing to use the substance that they feel that they want to use. You know, you have other substances that you could use. You could use alcohol. You could smoke tobacco. You could use pharmaceutical medicine instead of medical marijuana. Whatever it is, you know, it's called personal choice. And, you know, the government's regulation of substances, the Controlled Substances Act, the DEA, and all the other things that go along with it, private prisons, none of that shit is American. Have you ever wondered why we call ourselves the land of the free when there's that big of a deal set up around whether or not you could fucking smoke marijuana? So anyway, we're talking about the Michigan dispensary closing situation again. And now this time we have a good update, hopefully. And I encourage anybody that lives in Michigan to take note of this and to look look at the links I'm going to provide. Go ahead and maybe contact your representative in Michigan, not the DC one, the Michigan one, so that they can sign on to this thing here that's going to protect existing dispensaries beyond the 25th or the December 15th kind of a new soft deadline that was imposed. It's more or less a hard deadline if you want to get right down to it by the licensing regulation people over there at Laura, who basically are saying that if you, in good faith, want to have a good chance at getting one of these coveted licenses, you should probably close before then, and you definitely shouldn't be open after the licenses applications are available on the 15th, because then, you know, they would be like, well, you're operating illegally right now, so there's a strike against you. And this operating illegally thing, you know, whatever. There's still a general consensus saying that these places should not be deemed illegal. But well, whatever. Let's see what we got to say about it. We have a story here out of Metro Times by Violet Ikonomova. Michigan's pot shops may have to close by mid-December. Michigan's Medical Marijuana Licensing Board has opted not to encourage dispensaries in the state to close by the end of this week, after a public meeting in which patients described the harm it would cause. But dispensaries will likely have to shut down by December 15th or risk being penalized as they apply for licenses to operate under the new medical marijuana laws passed in Lansing last year. Check. The plan to require marijuana businesses to close by the same date that they can begin applying for licenses emerged ahead of yesterday's board meeting after one of the two former police officers on the 5-person panel last month made a push to close all the dispensaries by September 15th. According to a statement from the state's Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, the December shutdown deadline, quote, will allow existing operations to wind down while they are also giving adequate time for patients to establish connections to caregivers and help ensure continuity of access. Now, I've went over this in my last video about this, but what they're basically, you know, they're assuming that, so, you know, you close down on the 15th, someone puts an application in on the 15th. Big deal. We still have you know, the application process to go through. After that, you have to have somebody that's regulated to grow it. Then the people that are regulated to transport it, test it, and the processors process it. And then finally, after all that, that sounds like about 8 months. Then you'll see the dispensaries getting this regulated marijuana, medical marijuana. And what are they going to do until then? It sounds to me like a long time before there will be a dispensary with actual medical marijuana on the shelf in Michigan. after this December 15th thing, when these dispensaries are supposedly supposed to wind down. I don't even know what that means. As they're winding down, they're basically telling patients, hey, you're going to have to go find a caregiver. And meanwhile, caregiving isn't something easy to do. In Michigan, a lot of people got dealt a hard lesson in that as they tried to become caregivers and failed because first of all, they didn't really know how to grow marijuana, let alone medical marijuana. So there's a big learning curve, and a lot of people lost a lot of money, and the number of caregivers decreased 2 times of note. Once, almost cut in half, and then the next time, another third of them got just done. I don't know if it was a desire to just not be licensed anymore, as opposed to like having their name on a database, because the fear was getting ramped up that the state police was going to somehow penetrate the layers of legality and get their hands on the actual registration list. So, the idea that they're going to connect with caregivers, and there's also this assumption that the caregivers that are out there, I've heard it from Bailey himself say, oh, well, caregivers out there right now, they're growing so much extra weed that they can probably figure it out, these people that used to go to the dispensary. Well, the problem with that is that you've already deemed all that kind of transaction between anybody that has a card with anybody that has a card being illegal for a long time. People have been getting arrested on that one since day one of the law. So anyway, let's get back to it. Marijuana patients and advocates say a December 15th deadline will still limit patient access to cannabis, as I've just explained. And explains Robert King, co-owner of Canna Communication. So this will still be harmful to patients who rely on cannabis for their health and well-being, and it will be harmful for businesses. Especially the ones you're telling somebody that they have to wait until regulated cannabis comes back through the pipe. No dispensary is going to be able to stay open for 8 months while they wait for this regulated cannabis to come back through. At least one state lawmaker is hoping to come to the aid of these patients and businesses. Representative Youssef Rabhi, from a Democrat who represents Ann Arbor, will introduce a bill in Michigan's House Thursday to, quote, protect medical marijuana businesses from regulatory overreach. The bill would establish a time frame for processing the license applications of existing medical marijuana businesses and allow existing businesses to continue operating while their applications are processed. Now, that sounds like it makes a lot of sense. You should also include something in there that protects the supply chain of where they get all this extra cannabis or whatever. Quote, these businesses are caring for hundreds of patients and have invested in our communities by buying equipment, developing facilities, and training workers, Rep. Rabhi said in a news release. Small businesses can't afford to be shut down for months by unnecessary bureaucratic procedures. So what I would suggest to the licensing board is maybe have a graduated system for this extra weed that is going to be in the marketplace that, we call it overage. So if a caregiver has overage, they should be able to, take it to a dispensary and do what they've been doing up until now. Get their overage to the dispensary so the dispensary can distribute it to the people that don't have caregivers. Marijuana Licensing Board member and former Michigan State Police Officer Donald Bailey's logic in penalizing pot shops that stay open seems to have something to do with the fact that they're operating illegally under the voter-approved 2008 medical marijuana law. At yesterday's meeting, Bailey and the board's chairman, former Michigan House Speaker Rick Johnson, that's what he was, and he's a Republican as well, said that they still want to see dispensaries shut down sooner. Quote, I understand that Laura thinks December 15th is the appropriate date, but my date is September 15th. The Detroit Free Press quoted Bailey as saying, operating a dispensary now, quote, is a violation of the law. It has been. I'm not going to support someone who stays open. So by him saying that, it's kind of like a double punch. One, he's a former state police sergeant. So when he says something like that, it's kind of like a bird whistle to the police that are out there on the ground right now. Like, hey, go ahead and just bust anybody that's still open after the 15th of September. Let's see, that's tomorrow. So who knows what's going to happen there. And then the other side of that coin is that he's on this board that issues licenses. So he's saying that he's not going to support you. That's basically saying when your license is in front of him and he knows that you stayed open past September 15th, he's going to be like, no, I don't want this guy to have a license. Now, I don't know how this license process actually works. I don't know if like one person on the board can just shut down somebody's whole application or whatever. I'm sure they'd have to have a little bit more reason than, oh, they stayed open during the, they were open period. They were somebody that was illegal for all these years. You can say that all you want. And the Supreme Court said it and all this stuff right here in 2003. The Michigan Supreme Court ruled that the state law legalizing medical marijuana does not allow for dispensaries. That's fine. You can say that. So then what you got to do is you got to go to each municipality and see how they handled that. Not as a whole, oh, the state of Michigan just says it's illegal. Because you have to have a law that says it is. You have to have a law that says, okay, operating a dispensary is illegal. You didn't have that. What you didn't have a law that said they were legal, so automatically they're illegal. Come on, man. That means you're the federal government's authority because they deemed it illegal no matter what. And that's the only authority you would have in saying that a dispensary was operating illegally. So the Supreme Court ruling still does not actually say, okay, you guys are illegal because it's not in the law. I mean, that can be argued again. Someone should challenge that. Oh, it's the Supreme Court. They're like, whatever, man. Like, many pot shops, with that word, pot shops, dispensaries, or we call them provisioning centers. Still, many provisioning centers have continued to operate in a legal gray area as some cities set up rules to let them remain. Yeah, so what are you telling people like Detroit and other people, Lansing, that had ordinances already and people already paid some kind of a thing, or like Gaylord who just got an ordinance put together? What do you say to all the people that were operating then, including Chad Morrow? What do you say to them? That they were operating illegally, just doing something that everybody else was doing and now is doing, and then the state is going to be sanctioning people to do. And the only difference is because you say it's okay now that you're holding your hand out for some tax money. So, yeah, they should have some kind of a better way to handle this and not, the authoritarian, basically fascist approach, which is what is being proposed by this whole idea that you could just shut them down or tell them, well, hey, maybe you didn't shut down. Maybe you won't get a license when you put it in either. And why would that be a bad strike against somebody? It seems like you'd want to give the licenses to people that have already existed in the community. They already have a trust built up with the community and with the police, with the town hall, with the patients in the community. If they were bad actors, then the patients wouldn't vouch for them. They wouldn't have survived as a small business anyway. And furthermore, what do you say to those people? We're sorry. This reaching regulatory body decided that we're just going to go crush everybody. Who cares what you guys made rules and enforced them and seem to be doing all right with that? It's the same exact thing Jeff Sessions would be saying if he's saying he wants to come and crack down on Colorado. Same exact thing, no different. The Michigan House Democrats put out their report about this on September 12th. And today's the day he's supposed to drop the bill, so I couldn't find anything on it, but I'm sure I'll probably include it in some kind of a update later. Well, anyway, protect medical marijuana businesses, patients, and regulatory overreach. From regulatory overreach. Bill would allow existing businesses to apply for licensure without shutting them down. Yusuf Rabhi announced a bill today to prevent existing medical marijuana dispensaries from being shut down by the licensing delays. Last year, the legislature passed bills to license medical marijuana businesses such as processors and dispensaries and to give local governments control over whether to allow such licensed facilities to operate in their municipalities. However, the bills did not specify a process for the licensing medical marijuana businesses that are already established. And also, who's going to really deal with the problem of you were an existing dispensary in a place that now all of a sudden they had a town hall and they decided they're not going to have facilities under the MMFLA? What happens to those people? oh, we're sorry, you're just going to have to move somewhere else. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but man, this is just getting ridiculous with inconveniencing people and making and putting roadblocks in front of small businesses when you should be trying to support small businesses as a state under a legal marijuana situation with the Medical Marijuana Act of Michigan, instead of using it as an authoritarian tool to arrest people and shit. So anyway, the Medical Marijuana Licensing Board said today that existing businesses must close by December 15th if they want to seek licensure. Because license applicants will not be accepted before that date, businesses will be forced to shut down for an indefinite period while they wait for their application to be processed. And then even if they open, they still got to wait for the medical marijuana that's regulated to get to them. I'm pretty sure. No one's talked about that yet. We'll see, though. These businesses are caring for hundreds of patients and have invested in their communities by providing equipment, developing facilities, and training workers. They should have a chance to show that they meet the licensing requirements without being penalized for investments they made before the licensure legislation was passed. Small businesses can't afford to be shut out for months by unnecessary bureaucratic procedures. Rabhi's bill would establish a time frame for processing license applications of existing medical marijuana businesses and would allow existing businesses to continue operating while their applications are being processed. Otherwise, all the licensure requirements would remain the same. The bill also clarifies the current businesses who apply before February will not be barred from the licensure solely on account of having operated without a municipal enabling ordinance before this became a requirement. Municipalities would retain their control over whether to allow licensed medical marijuana facilities. So there you have it. In a town like mine where they're not allowing it, if you're in the dispensary right now, this isn't going to really do much for you after the 15th or pretty much any time from here on out. I would say that if the township so wanted you to get the hell out of there, they probably would send in the door kicker downers. So you might want to get a hold of the municipality and see what exactly is going on with that. Shutting down responsible and beneficial businesses before they have had a chance to apply runs counter to the goal of providing reasonable guidelines for medical marijuana businesses, Representative Rabhi said. My bill provides a path for existing businesses to become licensed. Communities will have a choice of allowing medical marijuana businesses to operate or not, and many communities want to see these jobs and small businesses protected. Rep. Rabhi is continuing to seek legislative co-sponsors for the bill, which he plans to introduce Thursday. And back to this article, right here. No. Anyway, I will provide a link in the description so that you can go ahead and find your representative in Michigan so that you can write them and tell them to co-sponsor this piece of legislation. So that's all I have on this. Again, if you are a current dispensary owner, this is some time to be diligent about figuring out what is going to happen in your particular neck of the woods. I'm sure a lot of people have already seen what's happening in their neck of the woods, as in raids and arrests. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see a bloody transition. So if you could figure out what your township or city has in mind before they come kicking in your door, it would definitely be beneficial to you to do that, especially if you're trying to put in for one of these licenses in December. If you're not, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, and if you're in a municipality that has already rejected them, I would be seeking, I'd be looking for a new location, I guess. So, yeah. Do I agree with what's going on with the licensing board? Hell no. I agree with the crowd at the last meeting when they said Don Bailey shouldn't even be on this board. That's where I stand on that. And I think this piece of legislation here is revolutionary in the United States because this is happening everywhere where there's this kind of transition going on. And yeah, maybe figure out a way to do something else with the people that can't be regulated.